Welcome to the Hawkeye Sidekick podcast. And you're very welcome back to the Hawkeye Sidekick hurling podcast with your host Mark Kennedy, joined again this week by Kieran Collins and Ruairi Walsh. Lads, how are things?
Good, Mark.
Great, Mark.
Yeah, another fabulous weekend lined up. I suppose, guys, we'll quickly review the All Ireland preliminary quarterfinals that were played last weekend. Also, the minors, two sensational matches there. Get the guys' views on that. And also, this weekend, the preview on Saturday's All Ireland Senior Hurling Championship quarterfinals. I suppose, guys, let's get straight into it. All Ireland Senior Hurling Championship quarterfinal prelims. I suppose, Rory, we'll start with you first. I mean, Offaly and Laois delivered gallant performances, but obviously the form book held. I suppose, get your thoughts on these two results. Cork and Wexford advancing to this weekend's All Ireland quarterfinals.
Strangely, like from my point of view last week, I thought Laois would be more likely to, go right down the wire if any team was going to do it, based on the fact that they had history involved. But we just didn't really know what condition the teams are going to go in. And even when we saw the warning signs with Offaly, with Bain and Screeney going to be missing the game due to holidays, it kind of sent out a message that whatever about the future of the Joe McDonagh teams being in this competition, but for a big game at home with the momentum Offaly were on, it kind of sent a message, that this wasn't the biggest game of the year for Offaly, and Cork went up, were rusty, definitely, not the same Cork we saw finish the Munster Championship, and I think this game is going to hold them in good stead. Pat Ryan can refocus the minds afterwards, because to concede 3-19 to an Offaly team to beat by 27 points in the league in the same venue, considering where Cork were, they're probably, it's definitely warning signs for them. From that point of view, I think this game worked out quite well for Cork. Then Wexford Laois, Kieran will be able to tell us more about this, but it looked like Wexford were able to keep Laois at arm's length. So, I think one stage first half, listen to South East Radio as well, because no TV coverage anywhere of this, but very great commentary on South East Radio, and kept us entertained, Tom Dempsey and the gang. At one stage there, it was maybe 7-6 or 7-5, Kieran, and then Wexford got the next 4 or 5 points in a row, took the gap out to 5 or 6, and from there on, it was only going to be one winner in it. And I know Laois had a few gallant performers again, and maybe that penalty miss at the very start, goal early, might have, rattled Wexford, got the crowd believing. But, so even though it was so early in the game, it was probably crucial from a Laois point of view, because whatever hope they need to get an early lead and get that momentum going, and when that didn't happen for them, it was going to be an uphill challenge. So you could say, neither team were really wiped, Offaly, I suppose, near the end, that last couple of goals did put a gloss on the scoreline. Conceding 4-25 is huge. Maybe Wexford might be a bit disappointed they didn't get goals themselves, because I will think they're going to need goals to be clear at the weekend. But 32 points is good scoring, but I'd say Keith Rossiter was probably hoping for a couple of green flags there, just to get the confidence in the full forward line going in against Clare. Yeah, I suppose job done from both of them. Never easy, I suppose, when you're 100% favourites going into it and you're coming in against teams with 2 free hits with a home crowd there. But look, they both negotiated safely without any real drama either, no red cards or no injuries that we could see or hear of anyway. So I'm sure both managements are happy with that.
Yeah, Kieran, get you in there. I suppose you were at Portlaoise, obviously. Get your reaction to that Wexford performance first.
Yeah, I think definitely Roy hit the nail on the head there. The first quarter, there wasn't a whole lot between the teams. I think Wexford probably struggled a little bit early on Laois's long puck out. I think, but once you got a little handle on that, they started to put a bit of daylight between the teams. Obviously, the penalty was a big call, and in a role into you'd associate to be a very good penalty taker. Probably wasn't the best hit penalty, and Mark Fanning got down for a save. But certainly, these players I thought were up for it. I think Paddy Purcell was very, very quiet on the day. Didn't get through a lot of work. Dunphy had a great game, scoring 15 points, and I think the fact, I suppose Wexford Freeze probably did keep him in it. They only scored 7 points in game, or 7 points in play in the game. So, but to be fair, they came with a good challenge, and I think what Wexford or what Roy said there about the lack of goals. I think definitely in the first half, I think Wexford maybe were trying a little bit too hard to see the game off early, to taking 1 or 2 goal chances that probably weren't on. And Roland is a very good goalkeeper, and a very good shot stopper as well. So on top of that, so it was never going to be the right choice. I think maybe not panic, I suppose, but it's just probably trying to get the job done as early as possible. I think for the two teams, Cork and Wexford, I'd say the hardest thing in preparation for these preliminary games is the mindset, and I suppose not to be coming in a negative mindset. I suppose you have to come and give respect to the two teams who've come up for Joe McDonagh, and I suppose as we saw it with Laois beating Dublin, a couple of years ago, so it can be done. I think it's tough on the teams, it's tough on the Joe McDonagh teams, as hard as it is on Offaly. After winning that was their All Ireland, the Joe McDonagh final this year. That was their target at the start of the year, and 6-7 days later to try and tug out and play a game again, like they should be entitled to time to celebration. But however hard it was for Offaly, like it must have been so much harder for Laois after a defeat. A game I think they would probably feel they had the winning of, and to turn around 7 days later, 6-7 days later, and play another game, it's tough. I think there's a lot of talk this year about the preliminary quarterfinals, and I don't know how they can replace it. With the third place teams, what kind of format they could bring in, but I think as is, it's the wrong format. I suppose it suited Cork. They've got the dirty diesel out of the tank. This last weekend coming into a game against Dublin, who you'd imagine there will be a kickback from their poor performance in the Leinster final. So for the likes of that, it might suit the third place team because they haven't played a couple of weeks. But other than that, 95% of the time, they're not a competitive game. So it's hard to justify them, I think.
Rory, get you in here. If you were Jarlath Burns, the GA president, how would you revamp, or would you revamp this All Ireland series, particularly the prelim quarterfinal?
I just, in a way, I can see why they originally put it in, but like you do get a success from winning the Joe McDonagh. Like your prize is you are in the Liam McCarthy Cup the next year. I don't really see in a way what good it does both teams to be thrown in kind of at the deep end where you're coming against teams that are coming out of a provincial round robin who are well tuned at that stage. So if you were to include it, what you'd maybe do is have fourth place Munster or Leinster getting some sort of a playoff with the Joe McDonagh champions, something like that. But then that would devalue the round robin in Munster or Leinster. You wouldn't have that, cut and trust that you get because of the fact only 3 teams get out of it. So that's what makes it special at the minute, I think. So you would devalue both provincial championships. So just to include the Joe McDonagh team, I just think like you're coming into one round before the quarterfinals, essentially last 16 game or whatever, and you have 2 teams that are deemed to be weaker than any of the other teams that have played previously in the championship joining at that stage. So for a competition, it just doesn't make sense. The home advantage, I suppose, does maybe give them a bit of momentum, and you do get a taste of what it's going to be like the next year. But as Kieran alluded to, like playing, first of all, 7 days after a Joe McDonagh final is completely unfair to winners and losers. And also then just the fact that, you are coming in late in the championship to, against teams like you, the Cork team there, who are beat the All Ireland champions, and you're facing them, to try and it's just you're saving grace by getting within 10 points of them. And so I don't really see a future for it, to be honest. And I think even some of the players have said that themselves. Offaly captain Samson in an interview himself disagreed with the whole. And he's benefiting from it. Like he's getting a game against a top team, and I presume the fact, especially for the winners, that they're actually going to be playing against the Wexford, Galways, Kilkennys next year. That's enough of a plus for me. I don't think they need this round, to be honest.
One way they could do it, Mark, I think, is, and it has negatives too, because the top 3, like the 3 on the Munster, is it's fair helter skelter, and it makes the championship. It is what it is, but maybe 3rd and 4th place would play Leinster 3rd and 4th place, and like a playoff, maybe 3rd and Munster play 4th in Leinster, and vice versa. And you could have your 2 teams left at the end of it as well to go into a quarter-final. But I think then maybe you might be losing the roller coaster that is, the round robin of it. So there's probably a couple of ways it can be done, but is there any perfect way? Probably not.
Yeah, I think it's at the minute as well. Like, let's say, for example, if Munster does become less competitive, and it could easily in another 2 or 3 years, if 1 or 2 teams completely drop away, maybe then you could revisit it. But at the minute, I just think the way the Munster Championship is, you couldn't really tinker with it until things change drastically in it. But there is merit for it. Like you can see, it does give a boost to those counties, and we're trying to promote hurling in these counties and to get big teams in. But I just think the way it's at the wrong stage of the championship, really, for it to be introduced. Okay, maybe and this could be another thing as well. Maybe one of the teams, like the team that finishes bottom in Munster, get them into a promotion relegation game or something like that. Maybe, Now, and if they're good enough to win the game, which like they should be, and there was an incident, wasn't it, last year where maybe Tipperary could have been playing Kerry if it had turned out that way. And look, it would bring a bit of jeopardy to finishing bottom then as well, that you do have one other game playing against a team who've got to a final and they're probably, with a bit of momentum. That's the only way really I could see them getting involved.
Can we get then to the All Ireland quarterfinals? I know there's been a bit of controversy in terms of scheduling. Suppose we'll wish all the kids down in Fala to John West the hurling finals down in Wexford this weekend. Suppose, Kieran, can we get you in, being Wexford based? This whole scheduling, I'll call it a fiasco here, but I suppose the general feeling down in Wexford, what has it been like this week?
I think the general consensus is that it could have been dealt with a lot earlier. Like, there's been a 3-week gap between, the end of the championship and now. I think Micheál Martin, the Wexford chairman, did point it out, with respect to the preliminary game, that there is a possibility this could happen. And I think it's just last minute, very hard to make changes when it comes to that late stage. And then I think you look at the GA as a whole and like the Tailteann Cup, okay, look, it is a competition and probably a good competition in its own right. But you compare it to the second tier hurling competition in the Joe McDonagh. The Joe McDonagh, I think luckily the final was aired on television, but Tailteann Cup seems to be, the semi-finals are being aired and the prime time slot on Sunday as well. I think hurling is getting a raw deal compared to football. There's probably something we could probably talk about for a show in itself, but yeah. I just think that, even the timing of the games, even if there was no fail on like 1:15, 3:15, like they're not great game times for the spectator. And what bugs me is like you have a URC final on which doesn't include any Irish team on that evening that's going to be shown on TV. You have a European Soccer Championship that's on, and they're going to show every fucking 90 minutes of it, and Ireland aren't even in it. Like, if we can make, if the RT can show full, I don't know how many hours of coverage of games that has nothing to do with Ireland, and yet we have our own national sports here, and we're begging to see them on TV, I think there's something very wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. I suppose, Rory, can we get you in? I suppose the first of the games is Cork versus Dublin at 1:15, as Kieran has said. So what's standing out for you? What are the key matchups here that will decide this quarterfinal?
Well, look, it's going to be Cork's backline, isn't it? Because their forwards are going to put up a huge score, as we know. It's what they'll ship at the other end. And they are a very frail backline. Can Dublin get at them? They got at teams earlier in the Leinster Championship. Didn't, especially like, I know God, we're down to 14, but you have to say Dublin were clinical in what they did that day. Hit Wexford for 2 late goals as well. Like, they're going to need goals because Cork, as we mentioned, are, even on a bad day, this Cork team are going to put up a big score. They can concede heavily. So it is, the likes of Ronan Hayes and these guys really becoming a goal threat inside. O'Callaghan as well. And just, they can't be, we said before about relying on Donald Burke, but not even Donald Burke. They can't be just relying on kind of long-range scores here. They're going to have to really hurt Cork and get at where Cork are weakest, and where they have been weakest for the last, not even this year, but number of years, is that full back line. And even you could say running through their half-back line as well, where they're kind of slow to turn and chase and whatever. So that's the winner of the game for Dublin. Can they do it is the question. I don't think so. I don't think they'll have enough firepower to hurt Cork. I think they're going to be really out to redeem what happened in the Leinster final. They're not that bad a team. Like, I still don't think they're at Cork's level, but they're nothing like, they can play a lot better than they did in the Leinster final, and they'll be out to show this and prove a point. They are completely being written off, and you couldn't tip them after what we saw in their last game. But at the same time, I think they will be hurting, knowing the Galway boys over them there, Donoghue and the gang, like, they will be, Franny Ford and these lads, they will be, itching to get this Dublin team to redeem themselves somehow. So I just think that if Cork didn't have that Offaly game, if they were coming into this cold, they could be at risk. But I think they have ironed out a lot of the rustiness in that last game. And if anything, it's focused on, because they're probably listening to a lot of, let's call it bullshit below in Cork for the last while. After kind of scraping through Munster, that, suddenly they were going winning All Ireland's, and management need to play. I'm sure psychologists and management are talking to the players and all that, but these guys are going to work every day and listen to meeting their neighbours and the whole lot. And it does affect guys. So maybe that performance against Offaly will sharpen things. And I just think now that Dublin's chance of ambushing Cork, I think is less likely now based on the Cork's poor performance last week. So I just think that maybe Dublin are going to fall short. They're looking at I'm going to say 7-8 points, which would be an improvement on the last day. But you're just hoping that they take it down, even if they're close, maybe leading half time, something, just a better performance from Dublin. But they will need goals. We're talking minimum 3 goals here, possibly 4 to beat Cork.
Yeah, Kieran got you in there. I suppose, what are you looking forward to in that first quarter final?
I think for Dublin, if they can get Cian O'Sullivan back in the field, I think he's pivotal to their game plan that he plays. A lot of the year he was playing as a one-man inside, and he's a real handful there. Look, Dublin will be smart, and after that it's the final. I think they are better than that. I think they're completely caught off the hop. I think if you look back at the parade, there was the warm up for it, like Kilkenny were out doing drills, and that's when Dublin were taking the atmosphere in. Like, I just think the preparation was not right, and typical Kenny to ambush them on the day, and I suppose we knew it was coming, but just the manner they did it, and I suppose they really made Dublin look like a very, very average team. But I do think they are better than that. Do I think they're better than Cork? Probably not, but I do think they've had a few weeks. I'm sure a lot of that hurts. I'm sure Micheál Donoghue will be reminding these players of that a lot this week, and there has to be a kickback of some form. Whether they'll, I don't think it'll be a 7-8 point game. I think Cork, on the other hand, have to maintain the red wave or the rebel wave, as they're calling it. Like, we're still a long way from winning All Ireland, and psychologically it's very, very hard to manage on players, and maybe Dublin can catch them on the hop on this. Because I think if Cork come into this game thinking it's going to be another awfully game where they just need to turn up and win, they could be caught in the hop. I don't see it, but the potential is there. I suppose for me in Cork is positioning and certain players, like, will we see Kieran Joyce again? That back six that they've been playing for the last couple of games has been solid, and it's very, very hard to see any that half back line losing out for Joyce. I don't think he worked in midfield the last day. So in that way, Robbie O'Flynn getting on at the end of the game as well, scoring a goal. He's another player that I think has huge potential, and I think should be one of the forward 6 in that team. But again, who drops out? So I suppose the question marks are still there for Pat Ryan. Every game they take to the field, they have a huge array of players and huge young talent. And Conor Lehane getting man of the match the last day, which is, I think, a lot about people might have questioned. But will he start again? So a lot of question marks. But I think when it comes down to it, I think the Cork forwards and the firepower they have might be just too much for Dublin. I think Dublin probably will trouble at the other end, but I think Cork will just have too much firepower for them, and Cork will come through. But I think Dublin will show that they are a better team than what they showed in that Leinster final.
Yeah, I'd agree with you there, guys. I think there's definitely a kickback on Dublin after the Leinster final. I do remember 12 months ago, they travelled to TUS Gaelic grounds, and let's be brutally honest, it was a mitigated nightmare from start to finish. I mean, Tony Kelly ran the show, and they can't allow this to happen again for a second year in a row. I think it would definitely undermine what Micheál O'Donoghue, for any forward in this Dublin management team, have tried to set up in recent years. We'll go with Cork, but I'm still a little bit questionable in terms of this full back line. I've been critical of Patrick Collins, but by God, lads, last weekend he pulled off several standout saves that really saved the Cork full back line. And I think better sides do actually expose this Cork full back line to the maximum. Mightn't be this weekend, but I think Dublin may be competitive here for a good long stretch. But I think coming off the bench, if you have a Robbie O'Flynn coming on, you may chip in with 2 or 3 points. That pace coming from deep. Yeah, I think probably a 5-6 point win for Cork, but I think Dublin will definitely redeem themselves. Well, they have to really, guys. I mean, otherwise I think it'll be a very disappointing end to the season. Suppose, guys, the Premier game then is at 3:30 in FPD Semple Stadium. Clare playing Wexford. Plenty of history between these two. And I know we've talked about the fixture scheduling, but I suppose, Kieran, from a Wexford perspective, where do Wexford need to nail Clare this weekend?
Firstly, I think Liam Ryan is a huge loss for Wexford. I think if Liam Ryan was playing going into this game, you'd be coming in with a little bit more confidence. I think you look at the Clare forwards, and each one of them needs, they need to be marked, need to be minded very well. I think Shane O'Donnell, Mark Rogers, David Fitzgerald, Duggan, I think them 4 in the forward 6, I think they need special attention. I think at the other end, Wexford probably do have the forwards to trouble Clare. I think Clare have struggled a little bit more defensively this year. think they've struggled a little bit after their puckouts, especially their long puckouts. And I think defensively, when they follow forwards, when they're, say like Cleary is marking a Gillan, he will follow him all over the field. And I think teams have exploited a bit of space there. So I think at that end of the field, I think Wexford do have the forwards to trouble Clare. I think for me is, do they have the backs to hold Clare's attack and Clare's forwards? And time will tell. I think a lot of it for Clare might be psychologically and how they bounce back from the Munster final defeat. I know Lohan given the ones of the week off after it, I suppose, to switch off and recharge the batteries a little bit, which is probably maybe a gamble for some, but I think probably a very good move, just to, their players probably needed a break at that stage. I think it'll all depend on how Clare kick back from that Munster final. Look, I suppose they've done it the last 2 years, and they have got back into it and have got back themselves back into semi-final. But I suppose year on year it probably gets a little bit harder. Does Lohan have the same buy-in from the Clare public? Probably maybe a little bit of a split this year, more than other years gone by. I suppose players-wise, will there be changes for Clare? I suppose it'd be very hard to expect our Lohan to start after his performance the last day. To me, Tony Kelly didn't look right. Will he start? I think Dave Ruairi was a little unlucky to lose out because he had been playing very well all year. And I think himself and Mark Rodgers had kind of clicked well in that forward unit. There is, I suppose, changes that possibly could be made on both sides, but I don't think there's going to be much in the game. As you said, Mark, there is history between the teams. They have met each other, I suppose, at this stage quite a lot over the last couple of years as well. And I suppose they're fairly familiar with each other. So I also think as well the Turtles will be an advantage to Clare because, I suppose, Rory, you've made the point a couple of times that, I suppose look at most Munster teams would pick Turtles and they would like Turtles. And I think in recent years, Wexford probably the results haven't gone with them in Turtles. And I think that will suit Clare. They'll know Turtles very well. And, I suppose they only played there 2 weeks ago. So they've had that. They'll have that up on Wexford. But yeah, I think it's going to be a helter-skelter game. I think it'll go to the wire. And for me, if the Wexford backs can get a handle on the Clare forwards, I give them a very good chance.
Yeah, Rory, got you in here, Clare-based, in terms of 6 Mile Bridge. I suppose, what are your feelings going into this game? I mean, it was a huge disappointment, that Munster final loss, but we've talked about Dublin and a kickback. We're expecting a kickback here from Clare, surely, on Saturday.
Yeah, and it's not even the loss. I think it was the performance that was most disappointing because in the previous 2 years, Clare had kind of thrown the kitchen sink at Limerick and we were kind of disappointed, I suppose, last year that we had chances at the end to win. First of all, to draw the game, but we missed 4 or 5 scoreable chances coming down the stretch where maybe panicked a small. Whereas this year, we didn't even put ourselves in that position or have that chance. And as Kieran said, some of that was due to kind of players really performing but well below themselves and being left out in the pitch as well, which for me is the biggest mistake. And that's why I suppose Clare fans, as you said, are that bit disillusioned in, everybody at the game knew changes had to be made, but it seemed like management didn't until it was too late. And I would be hopeful that when the management review the game, I hope they use that week off, to look back and maybe judge their own performance and see maybe where they could win and where they could have made switches, and that they're not stubborn enough to realise, that things need to be freshened up a small bit. Wexford are going to be incredibly dangerous, as Kieran pointed out, the forward line there. All those boys hitting form, like McDonald has come into form this year. Lee Chin, Rory O'Connor, Keane Byrne as well. There's 4. Kieran named 4 Clare forwards. There's 4 Wexford forwards that if they all hit song, they're going to really trouble the Clare backline. But to answer your question, Mark, I do expect a kickback. There's been a lot of criticism in Clare flying around. They haven't become a bad team, as you know, overnight. I know some of the players are off form. I'd expect David McInerney and Tony Kelly to be, much closer to themselves after getting full game under their belt, getting that game in the system. And Tony Kelly always seems to play well against Wexford. And he'd be my sneaky bet for a man of the match here because for once, his odds might be stretched out based on what he's done so far in the championship. But anyway, I agree with Kieran. The Clare forwards are Shane O'Donnell on song. He's having a great year. Didn't get a lot of ball in against Limerick. It just didn't come his way. I would rest Aidan McCarthy next to him. I think that's one of the changes that need to be made. Maybe coming off the bench, he might offer something, but I'd freshen up the forward line there. Ian Galvin, David Ruairi, bring him in as well. No, things need to be freshened up, and I think it would make a big difference. But Clare start well here. Like the only team, going back to the whole Thurles thing, the only teams that have beaten Limerick in the last 4 or 5 years in Thurles has been, the only teams that have beaten Clare in the last 4 or 5 years in Thurles has been Limerick. So they've had a good record there against Cork, Waterford, even Wexford a couple of years ago, where we played really poorly for a long stage as well. Weren't led. Wexford started like a house on fire that day and just turned it around in the last 10-15 minutes. I don't think Clare want to be in that position this time. They want to be chasing this game, after all that's kind of happened in Munster. I think they're going to want to start like a house, they're the ones who want to start a house on fire, get an early lead, put the pressure on Wexford. And maybe like there must be kind of doubts because Wexford, the last couple of years haven't got over the line against Clare in these type of games. And there must be doubts there that if Clare can get a lead in them, that, maybe hammer in those doubts. But yeah, you just don't, to be honest, like it's very hard to predict from a Clare point of view. You don't know what you're going to get from them. But despite everything else I said about the Munster final and despite all the praise Limerick got, like Clare were still there going down the stretch. And the question is, I've been asking myself during the week, if Wexford were playing Limerick in that Munster final and they were, within that close to them coming down, I don't know, are for everything bad that we said about Clare, I don't know, are Wexford at that level? We'll find out on Saturday. But definitely they can trouble Clare. So it's kind of a weird situation just to finish on this. I would say out of the teams left, I don't think Cork are going to beat Limerick despite all the talk if they get over Dublin. I think Clare are probably the one team that if they get everything right are most likely to beat Limerick, but we're also the most likely to lose to any of the other teams left in the championship. They're kind of that sort of a team. So with that said, you couldn't really have any full confidence in Clare going down here. But at the same time, if you told me at the start of the year, for starting championship, we'd be playing Wexford in the quarter final, I'd be fancying as heavily. But I suppose with the way things have panned out, you would give Wexford every chance. But I still think we might have that bit enough. Our forwards, if they click again, there are goals. Even playing poorly, we created 4 goal chances against Limerick, 3 clear-cut ones. Just have to be a bit more clinical in them. And with Liam Ryan missing as well, I think Clare can get at this full back line. And with the full forward line we have, just hitting the right ball in this time, bounce the ball in front of Shane O'Donnell, and hopefully we will get goal chances and we will take them this time. So a very nervous nod to Clare here.
Yeah, Kieran, get you in there. Who are you tipping for that second quarter final?
I think, looking at both backlines, it could end up being a bit of a shootout, because with the quality of both forwards, I think if the Wexford backs, as I said earlier, can get on top of the Clare forwards and possibly maybe stop the supply into the likes of Shane O'Donnell and Rodgers, I would give Wexford every chance. I think the Antrim game was probably a bit of a turning point in the season this year. They've performed well since, they dismantled Galway fairly well at Maxwell Park earlier in the year. Going to Nolan Park, only losing by a point to the Leinster final winners, Kilkenny. In years gone by, they've struggled against the weaker teams, not the weaker teams, but like Carlow and that. And I think the performances they put in against Carlow and Laois, I suppose were different this year than what it would have been the last couple of years. So I think they've been a professional performance is what I describe it. And I think more pressure is on Clare. I think Clare are probably expected to win. I think Clare probably deep down themselves expect to win. And I think in that regard, it's a free shot for Wexford. They can throw the tackles off and just go at it. And I think they will. I can't see much in it. I probably would say Clare. I fancy Clare to be I think they are the stronger team. And I probably say I probably think they will come out on top. But I think if Wexford can get that battle at the back right, I give them a very, very good chance. I know that's probably 2 answers in one there. But
very diplomatic of you there, Kieran.
Yeah, very diplomatic, yeah. But I just worry. I saw it 2 weeks ago, Clare up front, and I saw the damage that they could have done had they taken a chance against Limerick. And I suppose, when you see how potent they could be, it probably would worry you looking at the extra backs. But I'd say Clare would just by the narrowest wins.
Yeah, I'm going to go Clare, and I think there's a few factors for me. Thurles has been a graveyard for Wexford in terms of performances. I think back to underage, minor, under 20 seniors, it hasn't been a good hunting ground for Wexford, and I think the psychological effect here I think Wexford have to get a spot-on performance here to beat this Clare team. I think the Liam Ryan injury is going to be huge as well. Definitely a bit of dominance back there in that full back line at different times, particularly at the end. But again, I think it's an intriguingly poised game because, look, the motivation's there for Wexford. I'm thinking back to the All-Ireland quarter-final there a few years ago between the two teams, went extra time. Wexford may have felt, definitely that they may have left that one behind them. So I'm going to go Clare. I think 2-3 point win and building a bit of momentum heading into an All-Ireland semi-final, maybe potentially against Kilkenny. I suppose, guys, quickly, can we get your reaction to the All-Ireland minor semi-finals last weekend? 2 sensational games, both went extra time. I suppose Ruairi, kind of looking at it from a Kilkenny-Clare perspective, looked pretty rosy for Clare in that first quarter. Kilkenny hitting wides left, right and centre. Clare going 2-3 to 1 point up. But as we say in this podcast, Kilkenny never do panic. And Jake Mullen led the charge with a 3-point win.
Yeah, it was a real, I suppose, over and back from both teams. Like we had that start where Clare took a lead, went out to 7-8 points. And Kilkenny at that stage were hitting wide after wide. Clare had chances then to really kind of put them away at that stage. Just didn't take them, I suppose. And what I thought was a major factor in the game, and it was kind of so Clare were able to expose the 2 men inside, 2-2 very early, and they looked like if you were told that Clare would stop with 2 goals after 10 minutes, you'd have thought no way, they're definitely going to get more, because every time the ball came in, they seemed to be getting goal chances. But then Kilkenny centre back had to go off with a blood sub injury, Dollard. And the lad who came in, Raggett, came in at centre back and actually set way deeper and started to sweep up ball and cut off that ball in. And it actually changed the game and the momentum of it. Yeah, it was kind of, in one way, I suppose, unfortunate for Dollard who went off injured, but lucky for Kilkenny because Raggett playing that bit deeper, I presume he got instructions going in to just sit on the D, and it shut off that supply in. He mopped up some amount of ball. It kind of gave Kilkenny a bit of a foothold in the game. They were able to kind of edge their way back in. Clare lost their shape at times. Definitely, actually, second half, completely lost their shape. Kind of the ball that was going in, especially with kind of a man sitting deep in front, they're hitting too much ball in centrally instead of put in front of the Murphy and Rogers inside. And look, they'll probably be disappointed left behind them. What the manager Brian O'Connell will be delighted with is they went a man down, 3 points down in extra time, and still fought back and playing, against a small bit of a breeze, took it right down the stretch again, just left the 1 puck in it at the end. And overall, I think this has been a successful campaign for Clare, coming off the back of 2 previously strong minor teams, one getting to an Ireland semi-final and losing out to Offaly, and the other winning the Ireland last year, to back it up with a third team this year. And O'Connell was saying there's 7-8 of this bunch underage next year, and it's positive signs again for Clare, just as kind of maybe the age profile of the senior team are kind of pushing on to over the 30 mark to see that there is a crop coming through. But as we all know, bringing a group from that age through to senior, it's a lot of work to be done there. But at least there are signs. Kilkenny, I suppose, being typical Kilkenny, never threw in the towel. We all know how wides can kind of really affect the team. They settled themselves after half time. Buggy midfield as well, really took a whole midfield, and Clare really struggled there. And I just kind of thought while Clare had been doing well in the first half, kind of giving the ball to the guy in best position, they started to take shots from low percentage shots from out the field and stopped hitting the danger zone inside where they caused trouble in the first half. But all credit to Kilkenny, took their chance, and the way they started extra time was the defining patch of the game. You'd have thought Clare have had the momentum coming back with the last 3 or 4 scores in normal time, and Rogers getting the great equaliser out by the sideline, that everything was with Clare. But it was Kilkenny that kind of, tore that script asunder, started the second of the extra time and created that gap then that was, in extra time, you get a lead in the team, very hard for them to claw it back. And that's what Kilkenny did. So all credit to them. And it's probably going to be a good final now as well with Tipperary. A hard one to call. And looking at it to start, the way teams are going in the round robin, you wouldn't have thought it would be a traditional All-Ireland minor final again in terms of Kilkenny and Tip, but here we are. So yeah, look, in fairness, the way Kilkenny fought back, you kind of have to hand it to them.
Yeah, Jake Mullen, huge there as well. He's a brother of Adrian Mullen. He's the bull buff, isn't he? So
yeah, I know he had a terrible penalty in first half where he missed the post by about a metre or 2. But look, nerves that's what Kilkenny weren't going well. The pressure was on. But yeah, to respond from that, maybe missing a penalty just shows.
Yeah, but he came back.
Same run as well. Same run and walk and the whole lot.
13 points in the game, and he's been scoring very heavily for Kilkenny this year. So
work rate as well, to be fair to Jake Mullen as well. He went out the pitch. he was needed. But what I felt with Kilkenny, even in Leinster final, Dublin asked questions of this Kilkenny team opening half, but they seem to just pick up the pace and tempo, particularly second half. They make the adjustments and, they get the job done, which is all credit to them. But I mean,
we've talked over that's just bait into them, like it's bred into them, that never say never attitude, and they have to be commended on, I think, like it's because, there's certain kind of teams that they had that just attitude and the fight in them, like, it goes a long way, and it's not just a senior team, like obviously you can see it in the underage teams as well. It's a huge part of their identity, Kilkenny.
Absolutely. I suppose, Rory, quickly, Tipperary Galway on Saturday in TUS Gaelic grounds. I was there. A vital goal for Tipperary. Minogue stand out. But all credit to Galway, playing with 14 players for a good 40 minutes of this game. Never give up the goals. It had kind of realms of the Nina CBS, St. Raphael's Loughrea game, in terms of that Loughrea never went away that game. And same here with Galway. And I suppose Galway will be a little bit regretful that they were 2 points up heading into the throngs of extra time. But Minogue getting a quality score at the end to kind of prevail for Tipperary. I suppose, get your thoughts.
Yeah, no, he summed it up well. And again, in this one, you probably would have felt Galway as well, getting their 15th man back in extra time, getting the lead in extra time as well. Galway hurled really well in that first period of extra time. And even going in at the end, they just needed a bit more game management, I thought. Managed that last couple of minutes better. But again, all credit to Tipperary. Like this Tip team, they made it tough stuff and really took the score as well. Galway will be kicking themselves, I suppose. They had every chance. But when you leave a game that tight, like when they got it out to 3 points in extra time, they missed a couple of chances to get it to 4, to maybe put that gap there. But leaving Tip there, no better team at the end. Like, as we said, those last scores were really well taken. Probably, in Munster, I know Clare beat them in the round robin, but the way they played the Munster final, like they really looked a good team. And now, I suppose, All Ireland final, they're probably targeting that from the start of the year with this bunch. Kilkenny will be no soft touch, as we know, but fair play to them. Again, did what they had to do.
I think as well, Mark, for Tipperary, there was some, I suppose, amazing player performances, like Kieran Minogue, you mentioned there, coming in with 7 points, which is huge score, and Evan Murray with 1-4, and Owen Doohan as well, coming in with 8 points, and huge tallies in the game. And I've been really impressed with Tipperary this year, and I think it'll be a ding-dong battle. But I think for me, I would probably just give the nod to Tipperary. I think that they carried on the farm from the Munster final over a good Clare team, won that game well, and I suppose this battle, and look, you said the same for Kilkenny, the battle will stand to them, but I think maybe Kilkenny maybe a little bit more reliant on one player, and I think Tip have more of a spread of scores.
Yeah, absolutely. I suppose we can really kind of preview that game next week. I know the final is set for June 29th, and I believe UPMC Nolan Park is the venue there as well. So another challenge for Tipperary to kind of conquer here, but I think that'll be a fascinating game. We'll get the preview next week. I suppose, guys, we may leave it there. Great episode tonight, some great insights as always. You can follow Rory at Squalshy on X, and Kieran, you can follow him at KCollins85. I suppose, guys, many thanks for your time tonight. Enjoy the weekend and matches, and we'll chat next week.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you for listening to this podcast episode. If you liked what you heard in this podcast, why not subscribe to the Hawkeye Sidekick podcast on either Amazon, Spotify, YouTube, or Twitter platforms. You can also follow me at Hawkeye Sidekick on Facebook and Twitter for the latest sporting opinions, articles, and reports.